On March 27, 1977, the small island of Tenerife, nestled in the Canary Islands, became the site of the deadliest aviation disaster in history. Two Boeing 747 jumbo jets, KLM Flight 4805 and Pan Am Flight 1736, collided on the runway amidst confusion and poor visibility. The disaster claimed the lives of 583 people, leaving a permanent scar on the aviation industry. This tragedy exposed critical vulnerabilities in communication, airport design, and pilot training, ultimately forcing the industry to confront its shortcomings and prioritize passenger safety. The Tenerife airport, located on the small island, was not designed to handle the unexpected influx of diverted aircraft on that fateful day. The combination of a crowded runway, dense fog, and a series of miscommunications created a perfect storm for disaster. The events of that day serve as a stark reminder of the importance of clear communication, rigorous safety protocols, and a constant awareness of potential hazards in aviation. The Tenerife disaster was not just a result of one single error, but a cascade of failures that highlighted the need for systemic changes. The air traffic controllers, overwhelmed by the sudden surge in traffic, struggled to manage the situation effectively. Pilots, under immense pressure, made critical errors in judgment. The airport's layout, not designed for such heavy traffic, further complicated the situation. Miscommunications between the control tower and the pilots led to fatal misunderstandings. In the aftermath, the aviation community came together to mourn the loss and to learn from the tragedy. Memorials were erected to honor the victims, and their legacy lives on in the improved safety measures that were implemented. Today, the lessons learned from Tenerife continue to shape the aviation industry. Advanced training programs, better communication systems, and more robust safety protocols have been put in place to prevent such a disaster from ever happening again. The Canary Islands, situated off the coast of Africa, have long been a popular tourist destination, attracting visitors with their year-round sunshine and volcanic landscapes. Tenerife, the largest of the islands, boasts stunning beaches, towering mountains, and a vibrant culture. In the 1970s, air travel was becoming increasingly accessible, leading to a surge in tourism to the Canary Islands. Tenerife's airport, however, was not equipped to handle the growing number of flights. Its infrastructure was outdated, and its communication systems were inadequate for the volume of traffic it was experiencing. The airport's location, nestled between mountains, made it susceptible to sudden changes in weather, including the thick fog that played a crucial role in the disaster. On the morning of March 27, 1977, a bomb exploded at Gran Canaria Airport, another island in the Canary Archipelago. The bombing, claimed by a separatist group, forced the closure of the airport, diverting all incoming flights to Los Rodeos Airport, now Tenerife North Airport. This sudden influx of aircraft, including the KLM and Pan Am jumbo jets, overwhelmed the small airport, creating chaotic and congested conditions. The diverted flights were forced to park on the taxiway, reducing the already limited space for aircraft to maneuver. This congestion, coupled with the dense fog that had descended upon the airport, severely restricted visibility and made communication between pilots and air traffic control difficult. The runway at Los Rodeos Airport was relatively short and narrow for the large Boeing 747s that now crowded its tarmac. The diverted aircraft, including the KLM and Pan Am flights, were forced to taxi on the runway itself to reach their takeoff position, further increasing the risk of an incident. The fog, which had grown thicker, made it nearly impossible for pilots to see more than a few hundred feet ahead. The combination of a crowded runway, limited visibility, and the pressure to get passengers to their destinations created a tense and confusing environment. Pilots relied heavily on radio communication with air traffic control to navigate the airport, but language barriers and misunderstandings would soon prove fatal. Section 5. KLM 4805, eager to depart. The captain of KLM Flight 4805, Jacob Veldhuizen van Zanten, was a highly experienced pilot and a senior KLM instructor. Eager to get his passengers to their destination and return to Amsterdam before a potential pilot strike, Captain van Zanten grew increasingly impatient with the delays. The fog showed no signs of lifting, and the pressure to depart was mounting. Captain van Zanten, known for his decisiveness and confidence, made a series of critical decisions that, in hindsight, contributed to the disaster. He began taxiing his aircraft before receiving explicit clearance from air traffic control, misinterpreting a message as permission to take off. Section 6, Pan Am, 1736, Lost and Confused. Pan Am Flight 1736, piloted by Captain Victor Grubbs and First Officer Robert Bragg, was also caught in the chaos at Tenerife. The crew struggled to navigate their massive Boeing 747 through the fog and the congested taxiways. Miscommunication with air traffic control led to confusion about their position on the runway. The Pan Am crew was instructed to exit the runway at a specific taxiway, but the dense fog made it difficult to identify their location. They missed their turnoff, unknowingly placing their aircraft directly in the path of the oncoming KLM flight. Section 7. The Fatal Misunderstanding. We are at takeoff. As the KLM 747 accelerated down the runway, its crew believed they had been cleared for takeoff. The pilots, confident in their understanding, pushed the throttles forward, unaware of the impending disaster. The Pan Am 747, still on the runway, was hidden in the dense fog. Visibility was so poor that the Pan Am crew could barely see the runway lights, let alone another aircraft. A series of miscommunications and misunderstandings compounded the situation. The air traffic controllers, overwhelmed by the sudden influx of radio messages, struggled to keep track of the aircraft's positions. The KLM crew's transmission, "We are at takeoff," was misinterpreted by air traffic control, who believed the KLM flight was still stationary. This critical misunderstanding set the stage for the tragic events that followed. The Pan Am crew, realizing the KLM flight was approaching, desperately attempted to warn them of their presence. They could hear the engines of the KLM jet roaring closer, but their warnings went unheard. Their frantic message, "We are still taxiing down the runway," was lost in the confusion of radio chatter. The overlapping communications created a chaotic soundscape, making it nearly impossible to discern individual messages. Seconds later, the KLM 747, traveling at high speed, collided with the Pan Am aircraft. The impact was catastrophic, resulting in one of the deadliest aviation disasters in history. Section 8. The Aftermath. Fire and Chaos. The impact of the collision was catastrophic. The KLM 747, its fuel tanks fully loaded, exploded in a ball of fire. The Pan Am 747, its upper deck sheared off by the impact, slid down the runway, engulfed in flames. The force of the collision was so great that it scattered wreckage over a large area. Rescue crews rushed to the scene, but the intensity of the fire and the chaotic conditions made rescue efforts extremely difficult. Tragically, all 248 passengers and crew aboard the KLM flight perished. Of the 396 people aboard the Pan Am flight, 61 survived, including the captain and first officer. Section 9. Lessons Learned, a Catalyst for Change. The Tenerife airport disaster sent shockwaves through the aviation industry. It was a tragic event that resulted in the loss of 583 lives, making it the deadliest aviation accident in history. The collision of two Boeing 747s on the runway was a stark reminder of the potential consequences of miscommunication and procedural lapses. The investigation that followed exposed critical flaws in communication protocols, airport design, and pilot training. Investigators meticulously pieced together the events leading up to the disaster, uncovering a series of misunderstandings and errors that culminated in the tragic collision. The disaster highlighted the importance of clear and concise communication between pilots and air traffic control, especially in low-visibility conditions. It became evident that the existing communication protocols were insufficient to prevent such a catastrophe. It led to the mandatory adoption of standardized phraseology in aviation communication, reducing the risk of misunderstandings. This change ensured that pilots and air traffic controllers around the world would use the same terminology, minimizing the chances of misinterpretation. The disaster also prompted changes in airport design, with an emphasis on improving runway layout, taxiway markings, and ground radar systems to enhance safety and prevent runway incursions. These infrastructural improvements were crucial in ensuring that such an accident would not happen again. The Tenerife tragedy served as a catalyst for significant improvements in pilot training. particularly in the areas of crew resource management, decision-making under pressure, and situational awareness. Pilots were trained to work more effectively as a team, making better decisions in high-stress situations. The lessons learned from this horrific event continue to shape the aviation industry today, reinforcing the importance of safety as the paramount concern in every aspect of flight. The changes implemented in the wake of the disaster have undoubtedly saved countless lives and will continue to do so in the future.